Doma Sports Talk worldwide with some news from the world of boxing. So y'all know what time it is. You ain't in a rush to get concussed. I'm gonna make this quick because it's just ridiculous, right? But number one, pound for pound, the best boxer that we have right now would be Terence Bud Crawford. Now, some would have Canelo Alvarez being number one. Some even still after his loss to Dimitri Bivol. And, sometimes you just, listen to that, it's, it's egregious, right? And when people out of the media and other boxers say Canelo, then it seems to be artificial because most of the information about Terence Crawford and Canelo, they're worlds apart in terms of who they try to fight or who they want to fight and, things like that. And, and it's pretty obvious, and I think that people would be best served to make sure that Canelo would know that, right? It should be open. And that way you would probably force him to fight people. But if he's still considered the face of boxing and number one pound for pound, when he's obviously not fighting people, then therein lies the problem. Now we know that. We talk about it often here. It's documented here. But here's something from Terence Bud Crawford. Now Terence Bud Crawford, let's be honest, he's a 3-division champion. Lightweight champion, he was lineal. Junior welterweight champion, he was undisputed. And some people try to say, oh, that undisputed wasn't hard. Let's just put the brakes on that. He beat Julius Indungo, and all hail Julius Indungo. People just good names because they don't follow what's going on, and they don't go back and watch the lead ups to these fights. But let's make sure this is clear. Julius Indungo had just came off of going to Russia to beat undefeated Troyanowski, right? Who they were about to start saying that Terence Crawford didn't want to fight because he was an undefeated Eastern European fighter and he was looking good. But he got knocked out by Julius Indungo. And that put a little spit in the soup for a lot of people who were about to start going with the Terence Crawford is scared of Troyanowski narrative. It didn't happen. Then after Julius Indungo went to Russia and knocked out Troyanowski, he went to Scotland and beat the champion, Ricky Burns. Mr. Burns, right? Excellent. So he went and done that. That's how he got those 2 championships. And then he said, you know what? It's another champion in Nebraska, which would be Terence Crawford. Julius Indungo said, I'm going to Nebraska to beat him. So we can't just act like Julius Indungo because no one would have done that. Everyone would have said, you know what, I went to Russia and I went to Scotland, and there's going to be some negotiation problems. I ain't going to no damn Nebraska in his backyard. Who the hell I think I am, Alexander Usyk or something, right? I ain't going to the 3rd backyard, but he did. So we're going to act like Julius Indungo was easy. No, he wasn't, right? But Terence Crawford made it look that way by stopping him with a body blow and becoming undisputed. That wasn't easy. But people can say it after the fact, right? Because people don't go back or didn't live through it or didn't just act like they don't care because of the narrative they're trying to push presently. So no, yeah, Terence Crawford's undisputed at 140 was great. So having done all of those things, those accolades, made him number one pound for pound, right? Then, make sure a lot of people don't realize that. They will, because they get to welterweight. Well, he hasn't done much in welterweight. After having done all of that at 135 and 140, do you know that Terence Crawford has knocked out every welterweight he's faced? You know what I mean? Okay? Okay. All of them. Undefeated Cavalikas. Undefeated Jose Benavidez. Undefeated Jeff Horn just coming off of Manny Pacquiao. We'll get to Pacquiao in a second. Right? Undefeated, all those people. Then, we ain't just going to mention, we ain't going to forget Amir Khan and Kell Brook. People didn't beat Kell Brook like that. Amir Khan, whatever. Right? Still a good fighter, just be winning fights before he gets clipped. Right? And then following that up, well, wanting Errol Spence at the time, couldn't get him. And everybody was saying, well, he should fight Sean Porter, which I wasn't. I was like, why fight Sean Porter? He lost to Errol Spence. Errol Spence was a close fight. And Errol Spence needs to readdress Sean Porter because he didn't beat him that good, right? It was a very close fight, right? Why should Crawford fight, Sean Porter, right? Because Sean Porter, it's no championship there. But he became the mandatory. And then what happens? He fights Sean Porter and he stops him. In a close fight, though. Sean Porter looked good in the fight, you know, until he got stopped late, right? So he was already undisputed before welterweight and #1 pound for pound. And I was always saying then, hey, wait a minute. All the people in welterweight before Crawford got there have been there forever. They should have been, somebody should have been undisputed already. Crawford shouldn't have to come up and beat all those people there. He should have been able to come up and fight 1 or 2 fights and fight for undisputed if they didn't handle that before that. And all of them were there. The Keith Sturmans, the Spences, the Danny Garcias, the Sean Porters, all there already for years. And that wasn't cleared up. So it's not the guys that's coming up to your division smaller than you with the pound for pound moniker. Everybody should have been chasing Terence Crawford, but they weren't, okay? So that's to clear that up. So, you know, let's make sure this clear. Terence Crawford has no problem being a smaller fighter. In this division, the welterweight division, he's the smaller fighter, right? So here's another thing. So now, Terence Crawford has come out recently, and he said this before, but he's just saying it again. He said, listen, after I fight Errol Spence and become undisputed, if that happens, right, then I want to go up and get Jermell Charlo in my 4th weight division, that'll probably be at the time, and try to get undisputed there, which would make him a 3-division undisputed champ. Now, if you put Doma in and Bud Crawford, you'll see that I've been saying that for years. This is what he's going after. I knew it. You know, he doesn't have to achieve it either, right? It's just the fact that that's who he wants to. You know, you understand, like a Canelo Alvarez, I'm sorry I keep mentioning the guy, but, you know, he has these Demetrius Andrade, Jermell Charlo, David Morrell, David Benavidez, all these fighters that he won't fight in his divisions. That's not happening with Terence Crawford. Make sure this is clear. Manny Pacquiao is probably the 2nd best fighter of all time. Let a lot of people tell it, right? Manny Pacquiao 5, 6 years ago, maybe even 7. Terence Crawford and him was at the same promotional company in Top Rank and Bob Arum. And Bob Arum was scared to give Manny Pacquiao to Terence Crawford. Scared. And said it openly. He doesn't want him to get hurt, right? And Manny Pacquiao came after that, beat Keith Thurman and others, right? But when it came to Bud Crawford, everybody started worrying about his well-being. The pundits, Stephen A. Smith, Teddy Atlas, and them as well. We worried about him fighting Crawford, and Crawford was smaller, coming from 140. Now, to just give you some, you know, to make it relative, when Errol Spence was supposed to fight Manny Pacquiao's team was relieved that it was Errol Spence and not Terence Crawford. Terence Crawford's a smaller fighter. So Terence Crawford doesn't have to do anything or prove anything. People should be going after him. He's #1 pound for pound. Even Jermell Charlo, you hear Jermell Charlo talking about he's got to prove something. If Terence Crawford hasn't proved anything, something is wrong with boxing, right? It's just about what he is trying to achieve. Man, do you think he's going to go beat Errol Spence and Jermell Charlo? That would be sickly incredible. There's a possibility, but I'm not sure about that. And I roll with Terence Crawford just because of what he stands for and what he's doing and what he's about to be in boxing, what he should be, right? That he should be undisputed #1 pound for pound by wanting things like this. Because the guy that we have put up there on that pedestal is not even close. Is always running away from things like that, right? So yeah, this is the man of the hour. Terence Crawford. Just saying that and trying to achieve that to me is absolutely phenomenal. And his career up until now is absolutely phenomenal. Everybody tries to say, oh, his resume is not this and not that. Maybe at welterweight, we could say, well, I don't think everybody knocks out all those people he's knocked out at welterweight. I don't think they give a black person #1 pound for pound before he gets to welterweight, right? Because while most of these people that are talking now will ignore his resume before, right? Before welterweight, say forget it, but with Felix Diaz, forget it with Gamboa, forget it with Thomas Delorme, and stuff like that. Those were all significant fights, right? Before welterweight. And then to come in welterweight, be smaller than everybody you fight and knock them all out, you'll be hard-pressed to find somebody doing something like that. And wanting to become undisputed at a 2nd weight division against the hardest fighters, and is already trying to go to the 3rd weight division where he's going to be really smaller than those guys. No, it ain't nobody rolling like that. period. Doma Sports Talk Worldwide. And I'm up out of here, y'all.